Vision is sometimes seen as something you never actually achieve. But in today's world, with timing dynamics, with information, with acceleration, you can actually set a vision and put specific actions in place and see if you're tracking to that. And what I want to share with you is how to turn some of those moments into momentum. So we got the guitars out of the way, but who here, where are the students back there? Who's the student here? All right, students back there. Do you take a course called Momentum? Is there a course offered called the Momentum course? Why not? I mean, the fundamental essence of learning, of coming to a company, of joining a brand, is to help them create momentum. So go back to your professors and say, we demand a course called Momentum. How's that? For the rest of you, who here has the word momentum in their job description? Oh, okay. So you guys might be ahead of the game, students. If you get that course in, then demand it in your job description, then you can say, I'm the chief momentum officer of my company. How cool would that job be? You could be the first chief momentum officer. But if you think about it, momentum is actually the goal. It's actually what we're all trying to achieve. Is it right? Personally, professionally, a little bit of momentum. So let me take you back to physics. You didn't think you were going to get a physics lesson, did you? Let's get this going again. And so if you think about physics and how it can apply to a brand and to a business, you go back a few hundred years. No one thinks Newton was a business person, right? But he actually knew more about business than we think and than he thought. The first law of motion says an object at rest tends to stay at rest until you apply force. Remember that one in about grade 7, grade 8? Remember that one? Careful, it's going to get trickier in a second. An object at rest tends to stay at rest until you apply force. Basically what it says is, if you do nothing, nothing happens. If you do nothing for your brand, nothing for your business, nothing might happen. That's the easy one. The second law of motion says force equals mass times acceleration. It basically says how big you are and how fast you go will determine the type of force you can apply. And what we heard today and what you've heard often in the last few years are brands that are getting big fast, and they're applying that force in different ways than they might have intended. Some of it very positive, some of it challenging, some of it we're questioning, but at the same time, that force equals mass times acceleration. Getting bigger and going faster is also a definition of momentum. But then comes the third law of motion. I'll start it, you finish it. For every action, there's an equal and opposite. And we're hearing about that more than ever today. Reactions. Think of it as competition. The minute someone thinks they figured something out, someone else is already working on something better, faster, cheaper, an alternative. You're seeing it every day. That's called competition. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We need to take those three laws of motion into consideration when we start thinking about our brands and our business. Physics class over, and you all passed. All right? So I arrive at Gibson. I don't know if you know Gibson or Gibson guitars. I'm going to tell you the story about them, but I was at Levi's for many years, had an unbelievable, I wouldn't even call it a career, it was just an amazing experience, a professional experience, a personal experience for me. I wore Levi's all my life. I was part of a team that was able to take what was at one stage, I think I can say this now, a commoditized denim brand, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and we turned it into today a global leading lifestyle brand. And all of a sudden, this opportunity came up to take on a new challenge. And I took it on. And I knowingly took it on at a time of significant distress for a company. There's a terrible word in our vernacular called bankruptcy. On May 1st, 2018, Gibson declared bankruptcy. I was still at Levi's. And I remember seeing this, and as a musician, as a lover of music, as an owner of guitars, I said, how can that happen? How can an iconic brand that all the coolest rock stars and musicians love and know and own and collect and covet and display and play, how can that happen? And I thought to myself, I gotta understand this and maybe I can help. We've got a pretty decent playbook at Levi's, an iconic American brand that quite frankly took its leadership for granted, but then returned itself through a center point of authenticity. I just wanted to call someone. I didn't know who to call. Orville Gibson, who invented it, like Levi Strauss invented the jeans, isn't around anymore. Well, all of a sudden I get a call. JC, would you be interested in talking to Gibson? I said, what? Wait a second. Aren't they, bankrupt? And here's me thinking I'm going to help them, but then I'm worried, right? And all of a sudden, through a series of conversations, I understood that my destiny as a musician, as a guy who could kind of connect some brands and hopefully bring a vision, was going to materialize. And it was super exciting. I felt like my role at Levi's had come to an amazing conclusion, and it's gone off to do, as Terry said, they've done amazing things recently. I couldn't be more proud of that. But I took on this challenge. And the challenge was SOS. And it's a very real distress signal for a company and for a brand when you go bankrupt. SOS. And I thought to myself, that's the SOS at Gibson. How do we save our sound? The sound that a Gibson makes is coveted, it's known. On November 1st, Gibson emerges from bankruptcy. On November 1st, it was announced I was the new CEO. The week prior, I did a town hall to everyone in the company around the USA, in our factories, in our headquarters in Nashville. I wanted to get 1 week ahead of it so that they didn't hear it from the news who the new CEO was. I introduced myself, and I walked out with a simple piece of cardboard saying, SOS, save our sound. A week later, as the new CEO, I said, wow, how are we going to save this sound? And I started thinking, and the more I learned about it, I thought, what can I bring to Gibson? Have you ever done that on day one of something? Go, wow, what can I really bring here? And I'm going to, by the way, if you don't know, I'm taking you on a kind of a crazy journey here, from physics to Gibson guitars to Levi's. Now we're going to go somewhere different. Who here has done genetic testing, 23andMe? All right, pretty cool, right? Pretty cool concept. You learn about your background and where you might have come from and what, I think it's kind of cool. But then I thought, like, how easy would it be to just do your own, like, photographic testing? And someone once asked me, JC, how do you kind of, like, sometimes you're, like, really direct and specific and you're not afraid to take charge, and other times you're just like this free spirit, and sometimes, you're this pioneer guy. I'm like, well, I know why, because this was my grandfather. He was a Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Yeah, a Mountie. But he was a pioneer. He left London at the age of 15 as an orphan, saw a sign, joined the New World. He got on a ship and he joined the Northwestern Mounted Police. And by definition, anyone who's 15 gets on a boat and goes halfway around the world. To become a Mountie is a pioneer. I'm like, there's my 23andMe starting point. Then add the dimension of this badass, Commander Curleigh, on the USS Intrepid in 1965, 2 weeks before I was born. He was asked to come and join the US Navy for the Cuban Missile Crisis. And about 2 years after that, he was asked by the US Navy to join them to pick up astronauts. Just look at that guy. Not afraid to take the lead, get in a helicopter, protect what's needed, and pick up some cool people along the way, and astronauts. Oh, and then you say, well, hold on, JC, neither of those guys are you. You got too long a hair and you're too rock and roll to be a Mountie or a general. Enter my mom, Nancy. Awesome. Rocking her Levi's in 1969. Between her and Joan Baez, I'm not sure I could tell the difference. Playing her Epiphone guitar, which is owned by Gibson. Cool is that shot? So that's me. And then you go, well, okay, I got that. What else about genetic dynamics do you need to know? Watch this one. A real picture. I got an identical twin brother. So when anything goes sideways, I'm like, that wasn't me. That wasn't there. Are you kidding me? But what I do have is an individual that I can trust who can challenge me. And throughout your lives and careers, we've all had performance reviews and we've had dynamics, we've had courageous conversations. I've got an individual that I can do that with literally on a daily basis. Find that person in your life. And then those 3 passports represent the fact I'm a triple citizen of the USA, born in Norfolk, Virginia when my dad was on secondment from the Canadian Navy. I spent a lot of time in Europe in my life, UK passport, and I'm also Canadian. And I put that up there not to say, isn't that cool? And when you look like me, you need to have options. What I put that up there for is to say this notion of cultural diversity that's really in the zeitgeist of our culture today. I grew up in that. I went to 13 different schools. I've lived in 5 different countries. I've understood that if you don't know how to culturally engage, you kind of don't exist. Then finally, the one that confuses people the most is I take what I do really, really serious. As a CEO of a company, as the president of the Levi's brand, I take my role really serious. But I don't take myself too serious. This was Coachella last year. That's my awesome wife, Jackie, of 25 years. And we're not afraid to have a little bit of fun. So that's my 23andMe, all right? And I would encourage you to go back to some of what made you you and reflect on how it can make you you going forward. Now we get into the what and how. What have I done? How have I done it? Just a quick journey. And my first job was when you don't know what you want to do, you say, what's my favorite product on earth? And I want to work there. M&M's. So my first, besides picking blueberries and teaching skiing and all that stuff, was working at M&M Mars in London in the UK. And I remember very distinctly, I phoned up the UK, I phoned up the head of P&O, Personnel and Organization. I said, I just moved here, just thinking, you know, if there's anything going on work-wise, I just got here and, you know, that. And he says, Mr. Curleigh, you're no longer a suspect, you're a prospect. Why don't you come and see us? I'm like, that's pretty cool. So I go in there, I get on this journey with Mars. It was an unbelievable journey. I got in their accelerated development program, and some of you students should understand what those companies can do for you when you get in. They give you different dimensions of learning and experience. It's not always easy for you, but when you get through it, you actually get an opportunity to present some things to some pretty fancy folks in the company, and if they like your idea, they just might do it. Terry, you've had that before, where some of the best ideas come from those individuals that were always trying to find different solutions. And when they get a shot at talking to you and presenting your idea, all of a sudden, it just might work.